Hello and welcome to HMG Live, a digital production of HMG Strategy. HMG Strategy is the super connector for technology leaders, creating an open dialogue between technology executives, their peers, and technology providers. HMG Strategy is the leader in researching global macroeconomic topics that are relevant for today's technology leaders. And now, live from Studio 1A at HMG Strategy Headquarters in Westport, Connecticut, today's host, lead principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
I'm Hunter Muller, founder and CEO of HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. And we have a great lineup for you, a great lineup of world-class speakers, world-class thought leaders in this globally connected world that we all live in now, and never so prevalent or important than having a global network to stay connected and dialed into the latest ideas, the latest trends, the latest insights from around the world. More on that in a minute. So welcome to the inaugural HMG Strategy theme-based digital summit today. Today's program will center all around CIOs and tech leaders who partner with their CEOs and boards to accelerate digital transformation to master their digital domain. Never before has the tech leader been more important in the boardroom, the C-suite, and the line of business. Truly, you, the IT leader, the CIO, CDO, CTO, CISO, and any other C-level executive plus C-1 and complete technology department, you are the oil, the glue, and the accelerator that ensures success. Success for the line of business, success for the C-suite, and commercially success with your customers, current customers, future markets, and existing markets. It's never been more important for a company to have truly a rock star business technology leader leading the charge of innovation, disruption, and transformation and digital acceleration. Today's summit is powered by Mimecast, a cloud-native, fully integrated and API-enabled email security and management platform trusted by roughly 40,000 organizations, including HP, BCG, LifePoint, and many more. Stop cyber threats before they compromise your business and protect your most valuable data. Cyber attacks don't stop at your email perimeter. A relentless protection starts with Mimecast. We additionally want to thank our partners, our presenting partners, Zoom, and Platinum partners, Globant. You'll be hearing more from them later today in the summit. I want to introduce a great partner of ours for over a decade now in the Toronto, Canadian market, Kyoko Kobayashi. She's the managing partner of CIOs Beyond Borders Group, as well as involved with our great partner, CIO Can. Kyoko, please come to the digital stage, and I turn it over to you here to set the context.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone. As Hunter said, I'm Kyoko Kobayashi. I'm the Vice President of the Toronto chapter of the CIO Association of Canada. And I'm very, very pleased to be here to talk about the association. Next slide, please. Next slide. So here you can see a bird's eye view of who we are. We're 453 members across 7 chapters across Canada. We are the largest group in Canada of senior decision makers regarding technology, and we represent an annual spend of about $2.7 billion. Next slide, please. There's a little bit of history around the association. We've been around since 1998. We also have a CISO division talking about focused specifically on cybersecurity, which is a very hot topic these days. Next slide, please. So we provide a value proposition for our members that include many things, including the ability to network with a community of like-minded IT professionals and industry professionals, and also connecting and hearing from industry leaders in the CIO community as well as in the vendor community. We do this through formal and informal events that facilitate this. And as you saw on the prior slide, we hosted 68 events over the past year nationally and also, also at a local chapter level. Next slide, please. So CIO Canada programs are multifaceted, and they present opportunities to learn, get involved, give back to the profession through things like mentoring and networking. So you can see here the number of different vehicles for doing that. The next slide, these are just testimonials from many of our members, and they talk about how the value that they've given and drawn from the association. Next slide. And again, a view of all the things that we offer in terms of programs and the ability to network. Next slide. So we host an annual Peer Farm event, which is the highlight of our year. And again, it's being held virtually. Second year in a row, it's being held virtually. And it's coming up, running between April 26th and May 13th. This is an event we all look forward to, as it brings together a number of speakers, very high quality speakers, all sharing thought leadership around a common theme. And our theme for this year is the road ahead, seeing beyond the curves. So that's a topic and a theme that I'm sure resonates with everybody. And we're very excited to be featuring astronaut Garrett Reisman as one of our keynote speakers. Next slide, please. Here you can see a number of the other speakers that we've lined up so far that you'd be excited to hear from. Next slide. So again, if you registered, that's great. If you haven't had an opportunity and you want to know more about it, please go to our website and get more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyoko. It's been great working with you and collaborating. We love it.
Thank you.
And we hope to be with you in person in Toronto in June of this year.
We look forward to that as well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks again. Hey, next up we have Jamal Shah. Jamal is the managing partner of Casual Effects, also aligned with the Toronto SIM chapter, I believe. Jamal.
Thank you, Hunter. So hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Just as Hunter pointed out, I'm the managing partner for Causal Effects. We're a consulting company, and we also resell products, IT products. But the main reason I'm here today is because of the other hat that I wear, which is as the president of the Toronto chapter for the Society for Information Management. And some of you may already have come across SIM. HMG has been an excellent partner of SIM for many years, so thank you very much, Hunter. SIM is actually an organization of senior IT leaders, and we have close to about 4,000 members spread across 38 chapters across North America. We're actually a well-kept secret since the organization has been around for over 40 years. And in fact, this year we'll be running our 42nd annual IT trend survey, which looks at issues of interest and concern to CIOs and whose findings are shared with all the members and so on. Toronto is actually the first chapter outside the US. So we have some distinguishing features there, which I'll come to in a minute. But when we ask members of why they actually renew their membership of the organization, the major response we often get is that it's the collaborative nature of the group, and things like, I can easily connect with and collaborate with my peers right across the US and North America and so on. And I personally believe that the key differentiating factor for SIM Toronto, the Toronto chapter, is that we can offer its members the ability to network effortlessly, really across with peers in and outside their industry across North America. And many of these may be your business customers or partners and so on. In SIM Toronto, our focus is really on three main areas: IT leadership, so CIOs, IT VPs, head of IT, and so on. Emerging IT leaders, where it's the CIO -1 and other emerging leaders. And our key focus here is helping to mentor those emerging leaders through seasoned CIOs. Okay. And the other area we focus on in Toronto is the women leaders in technology. So SIM Women Group is very active in SIM. And by joining the Toronto chapter, you actually also have access to all the activities that go on in across North America among the SIM Women's Group. In terms of programs, we offer advanced, a whole host of programs. In particular, there's things called the Advanced Practices Council, where the members actually select the research topic, and that research is actually carried out by top research institutions anywhere in Europe or America and so on. We select them, and that research is actually available to the members for 6 months, or only to members for 6 months, and then it's made available to everyone else after that. Okay, and similarly, we have the annual IT Trend Survey that I talked to you about, Leadership Development Forum, and so on. So it's very much about helping to develop the next generation of leaders as well. And all 38 chapters, as well as the national organization, we run in-person and virtual events. And the Toronto chapter members are able to attend any of these events and so on. So I will post some of these links to Toronto Sim, as well as to a calendar of events for multiple chapters. So you can have a look at the types of events we run. And as I said, as a Toronto member, one is able to attend an event if you like something in San Diego or Austin and so on. You're very, very welcome to do that. So I hope you take a closer look at Sim Toronto, and we would love to welcome you as a member or a board member for those wanting to take a more active role and better connected with your US peers. And please feel free to reach out to me for more information. So thank you very much, Hunter, and thank you for providing this opportunity.
Great to see you, Jamal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Super. We 24 months ago, when the world shut down at HMG Strategy, we knew we were going to go digital and that we would be committed to a digital platform, a global digital platform. And here, 26 months later, I'm proud to say the HMG team, Melissa Marr, August Policio, the whole team, Zach, Connor, Ryan, and the whole complete sales and marketing team pulled it off. 190 digital summits later, 26 months later, 7 in-person summits later, we kept people connected on our global media model, our global summit platform, and now launching these new digital theme summits to complement our in-person summits. We'll be live in person April 5th in New York City with Stephen M. R. Covey with his new book, Inspiring Trust, as well as in Dallas in person with Stephen M. R. Covey April 7th, and then in Silicon Valley April 21st, and a complete lineup of in-person summits and advisory board dinners and roundtables in 2022, some 80 different experiences, opportunities to network with your colleagues and peers, both regionally and globally and nationally with us on a digital platform. Hey, first up, we have my pleasure to introduce Sanjeev Sahu. Sanjeev is the EVP and CDO of Ingram Micro, and Sanjeev is an amazing executive. So happy and pleased to kick off today's digital summit with Sanjeev, and he's doing some incredible work at Ingram. Sanjeev, great to see you.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here with you today.
While since we've been together in person, I think the last time was at a Chicago summit several years ago. Hey, give us an update on your role at Ingram Micro and a little context of the business you're in, the scale you have, and the relevance you have with your customers. It's a fascinating business model.
Yeah, absolutely, Hunter. I'm the EVP and Chief Digital Officer at Ingram Micro. Work very closely with our CEO Paul Bay, and we are one of the largest technology distribution company, one of the largest ecosystems in the world. About $50 billion of revenue. We operate in about 160 countries. We have more than 200,000 customers. Imagine for the last 40 years, you never may have had a day without Ingram Micro, because we actually are the brand behind the brands. All the major technology brands, we support them to distribute technology all over the world. So really, really my pleasure to be here. And also at Ingram, we are in this chapter of really defining at an inflection point our digital journey. And excited to be at Ingram and excited to be with you today, talk about it.
To get a really strong connection with the C-suite and specifically the CEO, because I know you really pride yourself on executive engagement.
It's very important. Paul has been in the role for like a month now, but before that, when I joined Ingram 6-7 months ago, we have been talking all the time, great leader and trying to, first of all, learn and share, understand where we are taking the company and working with the teams. It's very important to be aligned, and then making sure. And what excites me is that at Ingram, amazing culture, and everybody is willing to change. Everybody is willing to do the things for better. And it's just nice. I look forward to coming to work every day, and it's a feeling that when you love what you do, you don't even work for a single day. I feel like that working here at Ingram and with all the leaders, amazing, fantastic, group of leaders. But to your point, very, very important to be part of the strategy, because digital or innovation or technology cannot really happen at vacuum. It has to be tied to the core business and core strategy. And that's where it is very important that you have that connect.
If you think about it, you found a company and a time in your career where you're really taking off and blossoming. You found a passion. You really you love what you do. Talk to us a little bit more about really loving what you do and loving the business you're in and helping build customers and new markets.
Absolutely, Hunter. So if you look at Ingram, Ingram Micro, we are one of the largest technology ecosystem, and we have a lot of customers who rely on us to find the technology solutions and build and buy technology solutions. Where we are going is we are moving towards a more experience driven organization, where we are looking at improving building a single pane of glass for our customers globally, so that in one single experience for any customer who can actually do anything on Ingram Micro through that platform. We're also looking to improve our associate experience platform, which is our employees, and also our partners, which is our vendors, together with the power of data. So what we are doing is, one of the things, our big focus is the spirit of value-driven innovation, the spirit of bringing everybody under that common vision about here we are going to build digital platforms with the power of data, power of machine learning, working together to really every single day focus on the why and how we improve customer experience. So that really excites me when we actually show a demo of our platforms, because Hunter, people learn visually. So one of the things we do is try to show everybody in the company visually what we are building, and the smile and the delight that you see, that gives you and inspires you more and more every single day to do for that. And the last thing I will say is, when you start, people think we have innovation and you want to do adoption and adopt. I think it doesn't work that way. It's not the innovation comes initially, then you have adoption. We start operating with whatever digital assets we have today. So start creating that digital operating model as if you are that new company right now. That makes a difference. So we are operating as if we are going to be the digital company. We are operating assets, and over a period of time, keep improving your digital with the power of data technology. That's where we are going.
Genius, really genius. So it's really having a clear vision, starting with the incrementally with the end in mind, and building that mindset into the present tense. Am I hearing you correctly?
Correct, absolutely, Hunter, because people talk about digital transformation, which means there is a start and an end. We have moved to a world where there's no start and end to a digital or digitized business. What we have to learn is how do you live with it incrementally and continuously build that digital and operational spirit in that organization and start working on it every single day. Because I think the best transformations happen when you don't call it a transformation, you call it an operation. It's your day-to-day life. That's the way I approach it.
Market of a tight talent market on a global level. Any tips on how to effectively recruit in this market?
I think number one, we have to align on a vision and have the leader being a talent magnet. If we have a vision, we can attract talent, because the best talents are trying to not come and work for something only transformational, trying to be part of something that is meaningful and create value. I'll give an example, Hunter. We recently attracted some talent from one of the tech companies, and one of the reason he said is that the reason he joined us is primarily because excited about to be part of something that is meaningful. And as a leader, we have to spend a lot of time with this talent when you are actually attracting talent, because he said beautifully, he said, either I can work for a brand or I can work for a leader. So when you are attracting talent, spending that time beforehand with potential talent, taking that extra effort, getting to know them, That is very, very important to attract talent, because there is no single silver bullet to attract talent. We have to put in a lot of effort to actually retain talent, attract talent, and still building that whole spirit, that is internal spirit that we showcase within our employees, and the outside, have the same spirit of passion that you are doing that attracts, the new talent coming to the organization.
Hey, Sanjeev, that sounds great. Any advice for leaders that are tasked with digitally transforming their organizations? It's been so perfect to this moment. What's next?
I think the few things. One is, as I talked about, that do not approach it as just pure technology. We have to think broader and focus on value. I call it, everybody should become the chief value officer. The moment you have the lens on value and tie the business value with technology innovation, there you get it. So 4 short things to actually do that. Number 1, really start with a vision and a plan which your CEO, board, everybody's aligned, which truly creates business value, and align the whole organization along that spirit. Number 2, really come up with a plan that really matches digital excellence with operational excellence. So perform while you transform. You cannot disrupt the operations, but slowly show incremental value. Number 3, use modern technology with cloud, scalable, machine learning, data meshes, microservice architecture to make sure you can pivot as the market changes and you can scale. And the 4th thing is really focus on governance and value. There will be always temptation to do 50,000 things. Focus on what is moving the needle and the EBIT, and always try to build solutions with that operational governance and value in mind. Those will be the 4 things I'll advise.
Love it. Great checklist there. Great list to live by. Hey, when you think about your relationship with the CEO, help other folks if they're having difficulty building that rapport, building the contextually rich relationship. What are some few tips that you can share with us today that people might be able to learn from?
First of all, I think start with the idea about be your own CEO. If you can be your own CEO, then you can talk to a CEO having that mindset in mind that you're not only representing technology or a shiny thing, you're representing and talking the language of the business. Understand your problems, your CEO, how can you make him or her successful? Understand what are the biggest strategic drivers that actually make it work for the company. Be curious to have a thought leadership discussion or share thoughts. So you have to really build a relationship and understand where he or she wants to take the company and how you can help in that vision that your leader has, not in the context of technology, but the context of operational value. When you start really thinking like that and then get that trust, I think that goes a long way in building the relationship.
Stuff to live and learn by. Hey, Sanjeev, when you think about cyber right now in the current economic, political climate we're in, cyber is so important. What portion of the day do you think about cyber, and how important is it for you?
So cyber is as a very important part, of our organization. Even the CIO organization focuses a lot on cyber. It's actually one of our strategic levers that we actually discuss at an organization and executive team level. The idea is that sometimes cyber has to be, in my mind, a part of the same spirit, right? You cannot really suddenly say we should look at remedies or how critical it is. It has to be part of your technology spirit. As you are building software, you have to be more proactive. So we approach it trying to be proactive, but there's a lot of work being done in cyber right now. It is something that you cannot really avoid or live without in modern day and technology.
Hey, great stuff, Sanjeev. You're going to stay with us. We're going to roll right into the panel. Loved having you here to kickstart the summit. Great interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter. My pleasure.
Hey, next up we have our first panel, Digital Transformation, Mastering Your Digital Domain and More. I'd like to invite the panelists to turn their cameras on and come to the digital stage. First up, we have Nicholas Avila. He's the Chief Technology Officer of North America of Globant. For those of you who don't know Globant, they're a digitally native company that helps organizations reinvent themselves, which is obviously everything that we're talking about. Hey, Nicholas, let's start with you. We know Disney's your largest client, and they're a beacon of digital transformation. What are some of the nuggets you've captured in the wide range of organizations that you work with?
Thanks, Hunter, and hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. across the different clients that we work with, we have very well-known cases of digital transformation, and we got from airlines that were the first time that you meet with a person is when you're boarding the plane. We got banks where you can open an account and be comfortable and safe from your house. And there are some trends that we have identified that don't necessarily meet the eye when you first think about it, because there is so much that goes on the journey that we're creating for the employee, for the client that's using the systems. But there is a lot that the organization needs to work through to get there. Digital transformation is not a destination. It's not a place that you want to be. Like I finished my mobile app, I finished my e-commerce, I finished my new booking system, and I actually have transformed my organization digitally. It's really about changing the way in which the company leverages technology and builds it into be a strength, into a core capability, and something that differentiates them from their competitors. And when we were talking about the way in which technology leader connects with the rest of the C-suite, technology is very obscure for many of them. So it's perceived as a liability rather than something that's going to help companies move forward. So bridging that gap is important. I think creating an actionable roadmap to help these companies move forward so they can innovate faster, have quicker turnaround really makes a difference. So this is relevant not only to be showing results, but also winning on the talent war. I think that the most important part on the transformation is not only getting the new systems up and running, but actually changing the way in which you can accelerate the pace of transformation and creating those mechanics.
Success. Everyone wants success in this digital world. What is success? How do you help your client define it? And what does it look like to you?
Yeah, I was hearing through the talk before, and it's really important how we need to talk in terms that the business can understand. And of course, we're making ROI studies to figure out what initiatives we're going to push or not. And that I think that's fairly covered across the board. But I was talking to the CTO of a bank a few weeks back, and he was mentioning how everything that he spent to make the developers lives easier, he didn't have an ROI for. And it got me thinking about the fact that in many cases, most of the decisions that we're going to be making have little arbitrary effect on the bottom line, and that's why we normally focus on, for each of these initiatives, what is it the metrics that are going to be moving, right? That are you going to having a quicker release time, or are you going to have a better time to recover if you have an issue? So things that are going to be moving the needle on the flexibility that the business needs.
Circle back to you in just a minute. Stay with us on the panel. Hey, next up we have Paul Belloc. Paul's the global CIO of Magna International. Paul, you've been really busy lately. Help us understand how you've been successful in managing through this global pandemic, global supply chain, right? And put a little context around what Magna is and the scale that you're operating at.
Thank you, Hunter. Pleasure to be here. Let me give you a little bit of a primer on Magna. It's not exactly a household word, but we are a $40 billion global manufacturer of auto parts for new cars, top 3 in the world. We sell to about 60 customers, Ford, BMW, all the names that you'd be familiar with. And there's probably no brand of car or production car in the world that doesn't have at least some Magna content. It's a very complicated company. We're a collection of approximately 400 global plants, most owned, some JVs in 30 or 35 countries now. And it's a very decentralized company. The plants are autonomous business units, and we have a very entrepreneurial culture. Each one of these 400 plants kind of runs their own show. The bigger context, though, is the global automotive industry. And it's a really fascinating time in the global automotive industry. I think we all recognize how big that industry is. It's multi-trillion, in fact. It's a very integrated and sprawling supply chain. We're all very tightly integrated together. But there are profound disruptions happening in automotive that I think we're all reading about, right? So electrification of the powertrain. So this is new technology and multiple new entrants. You know, we all hear about Tesla. There's 20 or 30 other Teslas that are out there in the background. So you've got electrification of the powertrain, you've got driverless cars, you've got mobility as a service. And in our industry, particularly, we have something called Industry 4.0, which is the fourth industrial revolution, which is essentially a digitalization of the factory floor. It's kind of IoT on steroids, where we hope to get agility and speed and so forth in our factory. So there's a lot of things going on in this industry, and therefore we have to respond to keep our position.
Here, just stay with us just a minute.
Sure.
Next up, we have Samantha Licio, CTO, Chief Technology Officer and Canada's CIO of the Year in 2020, Public Sector NIHR Clinical Research Network. Samantha, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Hunter. Pleasure to be here. I'm now with the National Institute for Health Research in the UK, having moved from Canada during the pandemic. And I manage the digital data and technology enablement for what is effectively the coordinating center that supports all of the clinical trials in the UK. And that's across research active clinicians in 30 different therapy areas and more than 5,000 clinical research studies each year. And if you think of what that involved over the last year, that was primarily the vaccine research, getting the various therapies associated with COVID into people's arms and hands and into clinicians, their waiting rooms and their clinics. And the work that my team does essentially enables those clinical studies to solve the major health problems, the public health problems like COVID, but across all disease areas. We supported the development and rollout of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID vaccine, and now the delivery of antiviral therapies within days of positive tests. But none of that's possible without things like integration platforms and registries and data that can be consumed through web services. So even though the work that we ultimately do supports healthcare and the provision of care and great healthcare research, it's the technology enablement thing that's really important to us. And across commercial and non-commercial research, we're truly making a difference. And I think that's what brings me to work every day.
And great cause. Thank you for your professional service. That's amazing. When you think of innovation that have potential to transform your business, what are you thinking about?
Well, for things in the healthcare space, it's around changes to the cultural and societal norms that we've experienced during the pandemic. And when you think, as 2 years ago, we were in a very different situation. People wanted to go and see their doctors at their doctor's offices. They really didn't want to have conversations over the phone or conversations over video. That's totally changed. So things like decentralized or virtual clinical trials have the capacity to transform how quickly drugs can get into the mainstream, how clinical therapies can get into the hands of clinicians. So being able to take advantage of those changes in society that the pandemic's brought, to be able to offer things like provision of equipment, a blood pressure cuff that you can use to manage your blood pressure and measure your blood pressure at home as part of a research study, rather than having to travel to a clinic or to a hospital to have that done. So it's really that consumerization of healthcare and how that relates to healthcare research. And I think there are huge opportunities for us in that area, as well as leveraging data and big data. Big data in the UK for us, there's 53 million people that have a healthcare record, and all of that information could be available in a private and a secure way to be able to help with not just the provision of care, how to make sure those people get the right medicines and the right treatments when they need them, but also to help put those people at the center of their own data, having them control things like consent and privacy, so that data can be used in its entirety as big data, And we can do things like target trials based on disease prevalence. Where are people that have diabetes in the UK? Is that where we're doing clinical trial studies? How can we make sure that the right investigators are in the right places, using the right people to inform that work? So placing people at the center of their data, giving them that control over that privacy and consent piece, that's huge, and it opens up opportunities for that massive data set across all of the people that live in the UK to be done in a way that's respectful of privacy and consent. So huge opportunities, I think, on the big data, the use of data, and then the changes in society around how we're engaging, and more that's virtual. So lots to do.
Great stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about measurement of innovation and digital transformation. Any thoughts on tracking and reporting up progress?
Well, I think that's it's critical and it's key. But I think one of the things that the pandemic taught us was that singularity of focus and accelerated decision-making capability was really what helped us as technology professionals, as CIOs, change the agenda and advance the digital agenda, a once in a lifetime or a once in a career opportunity to do that. So I think sometimes when we think about measurement, we think back to all of the different KPIs that we need to define, and then how we need to report on those and measure against those. But when you think of what we've achieved over the last 2 years, we did that almost in absence of having those, and it was a little bit more of a gut feel kind of thing to be able to get products out the door and to be responsive to the needs that we had. So I think measurement has to be light touch, and it has to be based on, I think you were talking earlier about business value. Ultimately, getting a sense of that business value early and being able to track that, I think is going to be key, but doing that in a way where we can still maintain that accelerated pace of change and digital innovation related to that.
Great stuff, Samantha. Stay with us. We'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, Sanjeev, back over to you. Again, when you think about the digital journey, the innovation journey, this whole notion of tracking progress and giving updates, it's all based on relationships, right? One's a formal update, and the other is quite simply, or quite frankly, is literally reporting metrics, progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I said. If you can start with your success criteria and get your operational leaders involved about how do you measure the success of your digital efforts, and you come to an alignment, which is a lot has to do with building relationships and making sure how you make them successful. If you do the groundwork before, it actually saves a lot of time and effort, because what happens when you are building technology in isolation or innovation in isolation and trying to bring in mainstream, then there's a lot of debate about what is results, what is operational versus truly technology or innovation. There's a lot of ambiguity. So my thought process is start the process before. That's what I said, instead of transformation, start the operations, sit with the actual operational leaders, figure out, let's say an example, channel. Today you have X amount of revenue coming through your traditional channel. If we go to a digital channel, let's look at the distribution and let's look at how do you actually give that credit. Agree on the metrics, how you track it, so that when you are building the product, you can actually do that. However, if you look at the success criteria, it doesn't become more of a digital criteria or a business criteria. It is one criteria, and you actually make both the groups successful in one metric. And that's how I think we should approach it to make it successful.
A lot of sense. Hey, when you think about our profession in general across the industry, CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, and really understanding markets, customers, business acumen, how you make money in current markets, parallel markets, and new markets, what advice would you give our audience today, some over 250 people, about being more business and market-facing, customer-facing?
I think it starts with a simple spirit that you should look at yourself is focus on why. Why does your organization exist? How does your organization serve your customers? What are the biggest levers to make money? Where are you actually dropping your operational leverage or improving your operational leverage? If you take the time to understand that first, second, talk to a lot of frontline operators to get a lot of feedback loops. talk to the people who actually are doing the business, serving the customers, and understand that. Once you do all that, before you deliver or start delivering products, I would strongly recommend design thinking approach, because what design thinking does is you actually rally people together a common why. Then you understand the market perspective, sales perspective, operational perspective, technology perspective. And then you start with the notion of why are you building this? Then you move to what, then you move to how. And in the end, I call it end with a wow. And the wow is how you delight your customers and customer experience. And you can actually build that wow together. But if you do not start with the why and understand your business, it doesn't work. So that's what I would say, Hunter, that why, what, how, and then end with a wow.
Genius. I love it. I've never heard such a great statement about 4 key points on how to do it. Thank you very much. Love it.
Hunter.
Great. I'll be back to you in just a minute. Over to Nicholas. Hey, Nicholas, when you think of your company, you're in 18 countries, truly a global company, 20,000 employees or associates, and you're doing really cool work with like Rockwell Automation, Google, and many other companies. When you think about a successful digital transformation, how do you measure success and how do you measure ROI for your client?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. Going back to that question, I think that one thing that we don't give enough credit to is to the fact that Sanjit was just mentioning about design thinking, right? And how do you align everybody rallying behind the journey that needs to be built? And that creates a really good story to build the ROI for the initiative, right? But going back to what I said before, I think it's important that we also find out how each one of them, the activities that we're going to be bringing together, putting in place, are going to be connecting to that. Because something that happens a lot is that a lot of our arbitrary decisions are not necessarily going to be connected to the ROI of the project, right? So are you choosing to go with a monorepo architecture? Are you going to be choosing to go with a cloud infrastructure over another? How do you make those decisions? Are you choosing to use to allow each developer to have a different IDE? Are those kind of things? A lot of those decisions may not connect to the overarching ROI. And if you have a framework of metrics in place that are going to be showing how the team effectiveness and the ecosystem for delivering software is going to get better on taking those decisions, then you can show not only that you're going to be hitting the return of investment that you're expecting for the project, but actually that you're going to be maximizing the speed in which you can do it and be more attractive for talent as well, right? So it's multi-level, and the reason why I think that it's important is because, I mean, the business side we all know, but there are so many decisions that we have to take that we sometimes can't really connect to that. So finding a way to connect it is really important.
Thank you, Nicholas. When you think about this need for a feedback loop on talent and making sure talent is ideally positioned and operating as a high-performing team, both as a service provider, but teaming with the client, what's the feedback loop look like for you at Globant and your clients, and why does it work? Why is it important?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We were just chatting about how important it is to have the right leader and the culture. And I think that I celebrate the fact that it became a really important fact in the last few years. And we've been investing in culture-related tools for a long time to allow our teams across different countries to work together. And that's really, really important. I think it came to light a lot more recently. That's really important. And then it's also important being on the top technologies, right? People want to be working with what's next. If you're talking about blockchain, AI, even metaverse, we just launched a metaverse studio, not only in terms of the technology trends, but actually what appeals to talent. Microsoft is hiring a ton of people that coded over gaming platforms Minecraft particularly. And then the same way we needed to create a professional League of Legends teams to make sure that we're connecting with that part of the talent, right? We're in the place that they're at. But I think something that is sometimes goes unseen is that the process in which people get to work is really important. Having a high-performing organization where the way in which people work makes them feel proud, makes them feel part that they're part of an A team, is not only important in people wanting to be working with that A team, but actually in having results at the same time. So if you set it up in a way that you have better results, you're going to be actually more attractive to talent. And I think of initiatives that we've done to accelerate staffing and the way that we identify how do we train people and how do we move them to the right position are just ways in which we have improved our process so we can be more effective. And when you have that kind of behavior, then people want to come in and join these organizations. This is applicable to us and also to our clients as well, right? We've researched what differentiates our top performing clients to other clients that have struggled a little bit more, and in those in that process found ways in which we can help them improve their processes so they can be more attractive for people to want to join.
Come back to you in just a minute. Hey, over to Paul. Paul, you know, when you think of the whole process of digital transformation being driven by the business, what are the challenges you're picking up in facilitating, enabling, and leading the digital transformation at the company?
Well, to be clear, I'm not. I'm the enabling guy, right? So I'm the IT guy. I'm the CIO, and there's sort of a good news and bad news aspect to that. So it's a very exciting time in our industry and our company, and enabling is we're very excited about being the enabling business. So it's nice to be needed. But the bad news is that we're up against every day. Is IT's often, at least in my experience in the last maybe half decade, we're always the party pooper, right? We're always raining on somebody's digital parade. You know, digital is very exciting and all kinds of favorable business outcomes and so forth. But we seem to be the guy always putting up our hands about really three fundamental things. In our organization, it's a very decentralized organization, and we don't have a lot of standards in data and process, right? It's just a natural, unintended consequence of our decentralized model. And I think we all understand to do digital effectively, you need those standards and data and process are just fundamental building blocks of the digital delivery. And our culture, frankly, is allergic to that kind of thing. It's just not not a strength of the company. So part of our enablement role is to drive the work to get those standards and data and process. And I mean, let's face it, I think all of us on this call have done that kind of work. It's kind of boring, it's difficult, it's intensive, it's often political, it's certainly not sexy, and it's got to get done. So that's party pooper number one. Party pooper number two, and it came up earlier, is the whole cybersecurity thing. So I happen to be responsible for cybersecurity. We all understand it's a huge issue. Certainly in our industry, it's just an enormous issue. Potential risks are enormous. So it's basically a risk management exercise, as we know. It consumes a lot of time, cost, effort, management attention that could be otherwise focused on digital transformation, and some people resent that. And it's, my sense is it's in conflict with the kind of the speed and innovation and excitement of digital, and often cyber is an afterthought, right? And many of the digital initiatives, at least that I see, have all kinds of unintentional cyber exposure. Somebody will come up with a nifty plant, and geez, all we have to do is connect it to Amazon and we'll be great. Well, that's a backdoor cybersecurity issue, and people get concerned when we say we put up our hand and say, let's slow down a bit because of the cyber exposure. So sometimes IT feels like the bad guy putting on the brakes. I think it has to be done, and the trick that I've found is to make cybersecurity everyone's accountability. It's hard, but again, IT is just the risk manager here. We're managing business risk. And then I guess the final sort of party pooper aspect that I've experienced is, I've been in IT for 40 years now, and one lesson, career lesson, is the importance of organizational change management. It's just an essential element of any initiative, really, and digital is no exception. And I think, as we all understand, OCM is about establishing understanding and acceptance for the need for change, and just making sure that any change, any benefit that you get from, in this case, digitalization, is going to stick. And in my experience, it needs to be baked in from the beginning. It's more cost and effort that is a disruption. It's another sort of 10% of costs that nobody ever thought about. And with the excitement and speed of digital information, again, it's often an afterthought. And I think that's a huge mistake, because at the risk of slowing things down, we're risking the long-term benefit and the possibility of all of these changes that will result in digitalization. They just won't stick. So my company, we've got 175,000 employees in 30 countries that speak, 25 different languages, different cultures. And we just can't assume that all of them are going to understand the need for change and accept and exploit change. And so often, again, I'm the guy, the party pooper, putting up my hand saying, what about organizational change management here? And everybody wants to go so fast. And often my hand gets kind of shot down. So those are sort of three frustrations that on the IT side of the house, I often experience.
Great points. What do you do to keep positive and keep going, keep on going as a team, as an enabler?
Well, it's the same old story, right? Not a lot of things in IT change over time. So you got to get quick wins. First of all, small successes, build on those successes, find people that they're kind of in your camp, find your advocates. All the techniques that we've been using for decades work here too. Cyber is a little easier to get people's attention. I often be the fear monger every time there's a big, cyber breach in the news. Just about every other day, right? I'm sending emails to top guys. Here's what happened. It could happen to us. This is what we're doing about it, kind of thing. So that's a sort of an awareness thing. And the data and the standards, it's what we do for a living, and it's just got to be done. And again, it's just demonstrating successes and demonstrating the connection between all that sort of boring, unsexy work and the promise of digitalization. Because again, the digital stuff is really sexy and everybody gets excited about it, but you can't do it unless you have data and unless your processes are cleaned up. And right, so carry on.
Paul, thanks so much. Great to see you too as well. Hey, Samantha, over to you. You've had an amazing career, Canadian CIO of the Year in 2020. What are some of your success career tips in terms of navigating your career ascent?
Well, I think I was actually quite taken with Paul's description of, IT as the party pooper and what you have to do about that. And I think there's lots of ways that, as Paul described, as CIOs, that we can be recognizing the necessity of the unsexy stuff in order to enable the more sexy stuff. And there are lots of things that kill an innovation agenda. And I think in my experience, navigating the different ways to be able to address that has been very successful for me. And I think some of those key things that really hurt the ability of organizations to digitally transform are that lack of alignment or linkage between the business strategy and the technology strategy. And if that technology strategy isn't focused on business value and what is important to the business, what those key differentiating capabilities are, then it isn't adding value. And that's a key area where you can be derailed very, very quickly. And I think another one is lack of focus that isn't unrelated. Oftentimes at the board, there may be a lack of focus on what the importance is. What area do we want to grow? Where do we want to differentiate? And if that clarity of focus can't be kind of brought under the lens, then you risk people getting burned out on busy work and running after the latest, greatest technology innovation, next shiny thing, rather than thinking about how that can play in the end-to-end processes with the legacy systems that are there already, in order that the business model can be made more valuable and change. And I do want to say something about burnout, because I think organizations that don't have that clarity of focus, I think we were all quite lucky during the pandemic that focus was afforded to us. But as that fades, burnout is going to be a bigger problem for all of us. And as we think about scarcity of talent and how we attract and retain people, we really have to be thinking about that as technology professionals as well as leaders in our organizations. That the whole idea of burnout is that emotional and physical exhaustion over a long period of unresolvable stress. And to me, that sounds like everything that all of my people are doing every day. And it's affected all demographics, and it grew during the pandemic, and hybrid working has added to it. So I think we need to think about how do we get the right people and support them in having those conversations with the business around the art of the possible with digital and data, to make sure that as we're developing those business strategies emerging from pandemic, that IT's at the table and not being bolted on as an afterthought based on various line of business desires. So supporting our people, attracting people, and making sure that we're affording them the opportunity and the time to undertake the passion projects that are really going to make the difference for us. So I think there's huge opportunity, but also so many pitfalls that we can fall into, especially as we're in this transition time. But lots to do.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Samantha. Hey, we have about 4 minutes left in our session. Back over to you, Sanjeev. Sanjeev, when you think about the most interesting and exciting times ever to be a technology executive, technology professional, what do you think about? And then how do you balance? I thought that was a great point by Samantha on balancing working the team, engaging, and then burnout and rest, recovery, resilience.
Yeah, I think it's very important, as you said. Yes, it is a great time to be a technology executive, but I also think it's a great time for our technology executives to actually become business executives, because sometimes what we see that I like the fact that sometimes unsexy work is required to facilitate sexy work, but even sexy work will fade out if you're actually not creating true value. So I think what is very important that as a technology executive, this is the chance to be one step closer to the business, put that business acumen and value in your mind, and then really think about how you can have that whole value focus to be steps. So yes, this is good to actually get a seat at the table. It's good to work on your legacy, but what is very important is the speed at which we deliver value. We cannot really be bogged down by legacy, because every business needs the delivering and capturing value at that moment of truth, at the speed of need. So whatever gets to that, that's what the business wants. Is it shortcuts, shadow IT, real IT, digital? It doesn't matter anymore. Whatever gets to value. So I think this is a chance for technology executives to be more value focused. This is a chance and opportunity for technology executives to think bigger and be broader. This is a chance for technology executives to be your own CEO, to think about how you can actually run technology as more value creation and really engage yourself in a way that in the future, every company is more so heart and soul a technology company and operate. And that's where I feel where we should do.
Stuff. Thanks so much, Sanjeev. Brilliant insights. Hey, Nicholas, we got a couple minutes left, 30 seconds for you. Final word?
Yeah, I think I value a lot the conversation. I think it's great what everybody said. One thing that I was reflecting on is that many times we, as engineers, we look at all that can go wrong and the responsibilities that we got. But we have the ability, and we have the possibility to be the superpower that these organizations have to go forward, right? And I think although there is a lot of complexities, what can we do to push the company forward to really get everybody rallying behind something new, get everybody excited, and be the place where people want to work.
And folks, please go to the Partner Pavilion and learn more about our partner, Globant. Hey, Nicholas, I'm sorry, back to over to Paul. Final comment, Paul?
I think it's a great conversation. Sometimes misery loves company. It's a very, very interesting time in industry in general with this this digital drive, and I'm really looking forward to continuing conversations with my colleagues.
I love that comment that Nicholas had about the CIO as the new superpower and being able to introduce the digital and data innovations that can drive the change that we need over the next number of years. So I think I'll get my cape and tights on.
What a great panel. Nicholas, Paul, Samantha, and Sanjeev, thank you so much for kickstarting and jumpstarting the summit here today. You're all welcome to come to any other digital summit or in-person summit across North America. Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Excellent. Hey, next up we have Laura Money. She's the EVP and CIO of Sun Financial. Please welcome Laura. As a little context or background, Sun Life has already embarked on a digital transformation when the pandemic had hit. With lockdowns and remote work, there was unprecedented demand for digital solutions. Sun Life used the opportunity to accelerate the digital journey, bringing solutions to market faster than ever before, and Sun Life's strategic partners playing a key role. Not only that, but these partnerships are also helping Sun Life in new business development. Laura Money will share with us her experience over the past 26 months. Laura, great to see you.
Hi, great to see you too.
Hey, when you think about the last 26 months, let's think about going forward.
Yeah.
What did we learn and what matters now going forward?
So, I think what we learned primarily is that everybody changed, whether it's in their personal life or in their work life or in their shopping habits. They have all turned to digital. And so digital is more important than ever before. And as your last panel talked about, it's one of those things that makes it very exciting to be in the tech field right now. And we don't see that stopping. We see that accelerating. And you really have to step up to what the client experiences are in every industry, because in their personal lives and their work lives, everyone has adapted to great digital experiences. So you've got to keep evolving. So going forward, I caught the end of the last panel. I thought it was interesting. People were talking about the unsexy stuff and the sexy stuff, and I think that aligns, very much with what we're thinking, is that you need to do the things that are going to drive the business value, that are aligned with your business strategies. I can expand on that if you want to a little bit later, but you also have to make sure that you're modernizing that tech stack. And although that might be unsexy for some, for technologists, it can be quite enticing. Moving to microservices architecture, making sure that you have your data in a way that's consumable, making sure that you are really thinking forward at emerging technologies, et cetera. And also, making sure that you're building things in a way where you can integrate third parties into it. And then at the same time, you've really got to change the way you're working internally, change the behaviors, empower those teams. Lots of people might call that agile at scale. I call it beyond agile at scale, and we call it digital ways of working, where you're really changing those mindsets, empowering the teams to take decisions, giving them the ability to move faster so they can drive that value more quickly. Of course, always aligned with the business value there. So I think we've got to work on all three layers: the sexy stuff, the unsexy stuff, and making sure our people are really working in a way that's going to enable a faster way of working going forward.
Stuff, Laura. Hey, I understand you're just named top 10 Canadian CIOs by CIO Review magazine. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What's your leadership style?
I would say my leadership style is very inclusive. One of the great, I call it, blessings of my career has been that I've had the opportunity to work, in so many different roles. I've never stayed in one role more than 3 years, and just so we're all clear, I do plan on staying in this role more than 3 years, but I haven't stayed in a role more than 3 years in my entire career. So I've worked in infrastructure, I've worked in business process, I've worked on the business side, interacting with technology, I've ran big programs, I've worked in app dev, I've worked in digital. There's really barely an area of technology that I haven't been exposed to. But one of the huge learnings of that is that I am never the expert in the room on anything. And so maybe if I think I have a minor superpower, it might be a superpower around asking questions and probing and making sure that I really understand all the facets of any particular situation or solution, and also making sure that I build a team that has a broad range of expertise. So to me, my leadership style is very much of that, probably along the lines of a servant leader, but definitely the inquiring leader.
Excellent stuff. Makes sense. When you think about digital transformation, what does it mean for your industry, and how have your client expectations evolved?
Well, you might think insurance is boring, and you might think it's old and it's traditional, but it couldn't be further from the truth. And the interesting thing is there's so many different stakeholders in the ecosystem that are looking for streamlined and digital experiences. Of course, at an individual level, there's your retail client, but we, in different parts of our markets and different parts of our business, we have, group clients. So if you have a group health insurance policy, we support companies, and companies want easier ways for them to bring on new employees, for them to get their benefits for their employees, for them to take on new types of benefits. So I think that's a different kind of digital experience you create. And then in our asset management businesses, we have institutional clients, and you've got to be really great. I heard the last panel, you were talking about data and leveraging data. You've got to be great at leveraging data, great at understanding what's going to bring value to those institutional clients, and really focus on that. But because we're dealing with different kinds of clients in different parts of our business, we have to think about digital all through the ecosystem and for those different kinds of clients and the journeys that each of those stakeholders are going on.
You must have a lot of initiatives going on at any given time, and a whole team, of course, of directs, and a head of strategy, a head of architecture, right? Chief of staff. What does it look like, the organization?
Well, I think that driving that business value is obviously the ultimate goal of what we're all trying to do. So I have a CIO for each of our major business groups, and that's really important. And then to your point, I also am in charge of security. So I have my CISO who reports directly to me. I also have real estate in Sun Life. So I do have a group that really we call the digital transformation group. And that digital transformation group includes my architect, my chief strategist, and our data. So you think about that, it's the digital and data and architecture, which is so important to get right. But we try to keep consistent approaches across the enterprise, across the business groups. And that person is also responsible for real estate, because we really see the future of work and that employee hybrid experience that we're all going to be moving to, I hear, really has to be tightly entwined with technology. And then I have my CTO who runs the infrastructure pieces, who does actually a fabulous job keeping us stable and resilient, and working particularly with our CISO and the CIOs to make sure that when we make change, we do it safely and we run it well. In fact, my CTO used to be the CISO, and I have to say that was a great set of skills. I'm not telling you his name because he's just such a great guy.
Hey, digital transformation it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of focus. We've talked about that already today. What are some of the things you're most excited about, and what are some of your biggest challenges?
Yeah. So what I'm most excited about is when we see that we're driving business value. So there's loads of opportunity, whether it's in Canada. we've created new virtual business models. So when COVID hit, we quickly created a partnership with Dialogue. We actually took an equity interest in Dialogue, which is a telehealth provider, and we provide that to our group benefits clients. We've invested in Lumino, which is a really unique offering to help people find different kinds of providers and get more value out of their healthcare dollars. We also recently announced Cloud MD, which helps folks who are going to be potentially experiencing mental health concerns and burnout, and we've provided that for our clients as well as an offering. And so bringing in some different kinds of capabilities like that, I find super exciting because it drives value for our business, but also for the employers, let's say for our group businesses, but also for their members and for Canadians in general. In different parts of the world, we have different opportunities to do that, but I love seeing the outcome for our people and seeing our purpose come alive. The purpose of Sun Life is to help our clients achieve lifetime financial security and live healthier lives. And when I can see that in action with things like Dialogue or Cloud MD, I get super excited. Some of the challenges are some of the ones that maybe were mentioned in the last panel as well. Getting that consistency in the organization aligned around a common, at least, approach to architecture, making sure that we can leverage some capabilities across the organization, whether that's cloud capabilities or microservices or approaches to using our data better. And then the other one, the other couple that are always going to be a challenge, and today with some of the geopolitical things going on in Russia and the Ukraine, I think we're all very aware of the cybersecurity issues that we're facing and keeping on top of that. You can't be a successful digital business if you're not secure. So that's really, really important to us. And then with this trend in digital that everybody is, and the journey that everybody is on, talent is one of those challenges. We have to make sure that we're very focused on keeping our talent, growing our talent, and attracting new talent, because we won't be able to achieve what we want to if we don't have the skilled folks to do that.
Great stuff, Laura. You know, when you think about getting correctly positioned, the enterprise and the C-suite, any kind of thoughts or ideas on being recognized at the right level by the C-suite?
So I'm very fortunate. I report directly to the CEO. So I'm at every management meeting, and I think that's why. And I know one of the things we wanted to cover, and we're quickly running out of time, my goodness, is really around those third parties. So as a team, when we started to talk as a senior leadership team at Sun Life around becoming more like a digital company, becoming and acting more like a digital company, bringing those third parties in became one of the planks of our approach. We have a great corporate development group who looks for those opportunities to bring strategic capabilities into the organization. And we believe that in order to do that more quickly, that is a capability that we should be leveraging to bring great new tech and digital capabilities into the organization. We don't have to build everything ourselves. We can bring that in through the ecosystem. And the better we get at doing that, the more value we can create more quickly, as I said, without having to build it always ourselves.
Hey, Laura, great to have you on today's summit, digital summit. So much looking forward to seeing you in person, hopefully in June in Toronto.
That would be great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye now.
Hey, next up we have Gary Tino, Global Deputy CIO at Zoom, on the art of the possible hybrid flexible working. Gary, great to have you on today's Digital Summit.
Hunter, how are you doing as always?
Good to see you. What is new in Zoom world, Zoom land? You guys have done an amazing job of keeping us all globally connected over the past 3 to 5 years.
So I think what's new now is we have to do the same job, but as the world turns hybrid. And whether it's hybrid or flexible, or the model is unsure right now, but everybody being in the same room is not going to happen going forward. What did our friend Mark say? The past is gone and it's never coming back. And so all companies really need to plan on What's forward thinking? How are we going to make it so that we have environments where people can continue to be productive as they leave their homes? And we've had this discussion in the past is people are going to leave their homes more empowered. They're kind of coming back to these offices and they've developed new muscles. They figured out new ways to work, but they've all done that individually. And now this is like, what's the goal? You're coming to a new school for the first time and everybody has a background. And now we have to get people to work all in the same way. And I don't think that's really true. So I think what Zoom's trying to do is we're working on business value functionality that will allow people to work flexible in almost any way that they want.
About that hybrid model, what does it look like and what are the needs of the employees, and how do you, as a leader, how do you keep moving the needle, moving the organization forward?
Great question, because you have to also think about, we need to think about the needs of the employee, but we need to think about the needs of the company at the same time. And so what we have to figure out is, what does the employee need to be productive? What does the company need from the groups? And what I think we're going to see is this. We're going to see many models emerge inside of companies, right? One size is not going to fit all. And that's why I think it's very important that whatever tools you give your employees, those tools are based on flexibility. Hunter, you might want to work one way, okay? You might be a whiteboard person where you want to do things on a whiteboard and we have to figure that out. You might be a person that says, I take lots of notes, so maybe we should use transcription. Another party who's working home says, look, I don't want to show my video. I'm okay audio only. That's acceptable. So I think what we need to do is this. Companies need to listen to the employees. Whether we like it or not, they're speaking very loudly about how they want flexible work in their own companies. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we talked about surveying, and companies were doing what I used to call bi-directional, listening and talking. I am seeing a small change. I'm thinking that some of the companies are doing more talking than they are listening. And they're seeing that because they're opening the front door. A percentage will come back week 1, a less percentage week 2, a less percentage week 3, an embarrassing percentage week 4. And then they sit back and go, why didn't they stay? Well, we didn't create an environment for them to be productive.
So what's key to that environment, Gary? What's key to having the right leadership style, the right leadership attitude to attract and retain world-class talent?
So leadership is one of the things, you hit it right on the head right there. One of the things today is hybrid flexible work is going to work for 2 reasons. Providing the employees with well, 3 actually, the platform. And I don't want to use the word platform like technology, but providing them with an environment where they can feel like they can flourish and be productive, number 1. Number 2, giving them the tools that they need in order to be productive. Because a lot of us have upskilled ourselves at home. You know, we've talked about, I have multiple monitors home. Please don't send me back to an office with 1 monitor. I don't think I'll be as productive. And then the third is its leadership. How is leadership going to address the staff? We're old guys, right? Remember back in the old days, right? It used to be that if the boss was, I don't know, if he liked to go out to lunch, people went out to lunch with him because that was a good way to get his attention, right? Some people used to go down the street for coffee, right? Well, I'll go with you. Today, the leaders really have to step out of their comfort zones and embrace multiple work styles that they really can't control because the employees are going to control that.
Here's one for you. You know, we used to call it the old management by walking around, MBWA. What's the new way in the hybrid world of management by zooming around or digitally being present everywhere?
Well, you can't be that because then people are going to think you're looking over your shoulder, right? It really is about managing the output, thinking about what is a group supposed to do. They're supposed to produce, like it's like the manufacturing floor. We knew the manufacturing floor was doing well, not by going to every station, but 20 cars an hour come out. So we knew that. We're now going to have to measure, and we're going to have to measure people based on output. Now, this changes a little bit when we get to millennials and Gen Zs, because as you would wonder, if you expect me to do, 20 widgets in a week, and if I do 20 widgets by Wednesday, does that mean I get Thursday, Friday off? So the balance has to be, no, we can't really manage while walking around because that was really managing seat time. Who's here when I leave at 5:30? who's here when I get in at 8 o'clock? That's so pre-pandemic. Let's put it that way. I think the leaders of today really need to push their own boundaries, and they need to figure out for their own groups, because it's different, how are they going to manage the workforce of tomorrow and the output of those groups of tomorrow in a brand new way.
So I don't think we covered it quite yet. That was a good answer, by the way, on evaluating the team's needs individually and collectively, and what makes sense, what works.
Listening. Today, we've been doing a great job of polling people, but I think the conversations that managers and leaders have to have with their employees today has to focus on what makes you successful. How do you feel you can flourish? What can I do to raise your productivity? Because here's what's going to happen. There's a company out there speaking to all of our employees today, asking those questions. And we want to make sure that the leaders in our companies today are asking the same questions. Look, the Great Resignation hit workers about 6 or 8 months ago. Now we're seeing it hit leaders, because now the leaders are saying, I want to work different. And good leaders today, they're hard to find, and companies will scoop them up. So I think one of the things is listening, becoming more part of the solution of the company, hands-on, right? Becoming, the young lady just before me, she used the word inclusive, becoming inclusive in what they're doing, becoming collaborative rather than just, I hate the word managing, I write the word leading better.
Excellent. When you think of Zoom, how is the product positioned ideally to support hybrid and asynchronous work?
Clearly our focus, right? Our goal right now is to add business value functionality that's going to make people feel like they're inclusive. The meetings are more democratized. There's more parity. I don't want to feel like I'm the one person who stayed home today and I'm just that person on a speaker that no one even realizes is in the meeting. We've all been to meetings where you walk in and there was a little conference call device and you'd walk in and there'd be one person and you wouldn't hear from them the whole meeting. And when you ended the meeting, you probably forgot to shut off the phone line and you definitely forgot to say goodbye to that person there. That can't be anymore. Don't make me feel I came to the office and my peers didn't, so I'm the one outcast today. And it's not, outcast is the wrong word, but I'm the one that's not working in the same manner. Don't make the 2 or 3 people that were home feel like, what are they talking about? Why aren't I caught up on what they're talking? Oh, we had a big meeting before and we left you out. So I think we're working on tools that'll expand that. Look, language translation is going to be very important as we globalize. Supporting asynchronous work. We're very used to, I'm going to work from 6 to 8 in the morning, do child stuff from 8 to 9 in the morning. Maybe I have a problem, I have to pick up someone at school, or I have an issue personally where I have to do something from 2 to 3, but I'll stay on till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So I think for the first time, us that have worked global, we understand asynchronous work because of time zones. What about people working global on the same floor of a building and working asynchronously, I should say? What about in the same zip code? Look at your own office, Hunter, right? You work from 8 to whatever, 8 to 5, if that's your normal hours. But people who you see every day, you're not used to them working asynchronous to your work schedule. And we need to build tools that allow those asynchronous workers to add value as if they're working whatever normal happens to be.
It's one thing we've learned about this new hybrid model and working from anywhere. There are certain security challenges. What kind of upskilling advice do you give CIOs and CISOs?
Well, I look at it this way. For both internal, for security staff and actual staff, a couple of things. Look at 3 words. They need to learn new ways of doing things. They need to relearn some of the habits we had before, and they need to unlearn some of the bad habits that we had before. And so I think upskilling is very important, but it's just not enough to give them more information. You really have to figure out with them, what did you do before that worked, and how do we maximize that? What was missing from the model before that we need in the model right now? And how do we get rid of bad habits? It's so easy that if I'm in your office to come over, sit down in your office and chat, but a key component of our conversation is not included. That was the old way of doing it, right? But and usually because someone has a sick day or something like that. But now we have to learn, hey, wait, we have to include X. Hey, wait, why don't we have this conversation at the next staff meeting, so we're very inclusive. And I think the security people, we're going to have to talk about this next, but security in the hybrid world is going to be different. And I think the security people, let's not forget, we need to upskill them too, because they are also coming back to a much different world.
Gary, great to have you on today's summit. Thanks so much. Great job. You're going to take that next panel session straight up. Take it away.
Straight up. Thanks so much. See you in a little bit.
Great.
Let me get my panelist up here. One more. There we go. Thank you for joining me. So good afternoon, everyone. As you just heard, my name is Gary Sorrentino, and I'm the Global Deputy CIO here at Zoom. Today, I'm privileged of moderating a very distinguished panel on cybersecurity, safeguarding the future of work. You know, as cybersecurity leaders, we're tasked with helping our organizations manage today's threats that we've identified. But also, we have that challenge. We have to identify and manage threats of tomorrow. Look, the pandemic is starting to unwind, and our companies are starting to work in so many different ways that, you know, being a CISO, a security-minded person today could seem quite overwhelming. We don't know how people are going to work, and we're going to see many, many different work models. Look, even today, as we're struggling to think about the workforce of tomorrow, there are world events that are just changing our focus today. So today, I hope we can cover three things: how the future of work is changing, how security leaders need to think about cybersecurity going forward, and how we need to prepare our companies and our teams for these new and emerging threats, but not just within, maybe, and world events are telling us today, outside of our control. So welcome, panel. How are you?
Hi.
Good. So let's get a quick introduction first. Mignana, why don't you start?
Hi, Gary and Hunter. Delighted to be here. My name is Mignana Cote. I am the Chief Security Officer at NetApp. I joined NetApp 4 months ago from AWS, and my background certainly includes a lot of large-scale companies, Bank of America, PepsiCo, and AIG. And I am delighted to be here. And again, thank you.
Oh, thank you for being here. Ken, why don't we go next?
So my name is Ken Liao. I'm the CIO for the CAA Club Group, and I have oversight of information security. I think every CIO should have information security as part of their background. For those who doesn't know CAA Club Group, we are actually the largest auto club membership in Canada. We have 5 companies. We have 2 auto clubs, and we have 3 insurance companies that's under the umbrella of CAA Club Group.
Great, and welcome. And Jesse, come on, Amtrak's keeping us connected, right? So
that's right.
Introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Gary. And I'm Jesse Whaley. I'm the Amtrak Chief Information Security Officer. I've been in the role for 2 years. I've been at Amtrak for 3. Prior to that, my entire career was mostly in the Department of Defense, working from everything from criminal investigations to technology to CIO type work, and eventually into security, where I find myself today. So looking forward to having a great discussion with you.
Great. So welcome. We're looking for open and honest answers today. So probably what I think are some serious questions. A little bit of crosstalk between us will be great too. So Mignana, let's start with you. Okay. What does security of the future look like? Part 1. And where do you think that security of the future, what are going to be our primary areas of focus?
Well, I think, Gary, I've been getting text messages all morning about security, and I'm like literally when we started, I got one. So I think security of tomorrow is like being able to do things really quick. And so I just changed my answer. But going back to what I was thinking about from security of tomorrow, I keep thinking it is going to be who we are. It's our identity, and it's our identity of who we are, where we are, what we're doing, what we're using. And so security becomes me. Identity, you may have heard Amazon say identity is the new firewall. So I fully embrace that. Think about what we need to worry about tomorrow. I actually see tomorrow as today around this one, around IoT, and looking at, I've looked at some charts about where is the cloud spend going and where's the technology spend going. And you see different components, but when you get to IoT, it's huge. And then my mind starts shifting again to, security with quantum and other things. There's just so many things that we aren't quite sure of, but I, look currently now, and I still see some basics that we need to address as well. And I'm like, what has happened that we still have basic components of security not being addressed? And is it because we keep changing, we grow and bring new people in, and then we need to train them? Or are we too busy, or is there too much technology and we haven't brought that solution to it? So that brings me to another idea of how do we really embrace security as code? And what brings that to mind is I keep thinking of how many products we have. Over 3,000 products when I last wrote a paper about it. And I kept thinking, how do we scale that back and make a solution that is so simple to implement? And I'm thinking in, using standard templates in the cloud environment with security as code in a way to be able to roll it out repetitively that has our policy already built. And so there's many different ways, but what's not working is the abundance of solutions that we have, because my mind can't learn all of them and implement all of them and manage all of them.
So give me one primary area of focus going forward.
One primary area of focus going forward, I'm going to say security as code. I mean, that's right now, we've got to do that with the cloud, or we have that opportunity to embrace it with the cloud.
Great. So Kim, you know what I didn't hear? I didn't hear the word zero trust. And I know every conversation we have, we talk about zero trust. So maybe you can help us unpack that a little bit, right? So let's put it into a question. You're a CIO, so not really a CISO, but I know you have a security background also. Okay, so as the CIO, one, do you agree with zero trust? And two, if so, how are you applying that model at your company?
That's a really great question, Gary. And I think the piece is, you mentioned about it, like zero trust. I mean, is that the next buzzword that people are going to have it? Everybody's now going to be zero trust about everything. But it's really not that complicated. It sounds like a buzzword, but the security concept about it is that basically you don't trust anything inside the organization. Whereas in the past, you would normally trust them. So for security folks, great. But for other folks who don't know about it, it's not that complicated. Concept is simple, but it's actually not easy to implement. So to answer your first question, do I agree with it? Yes, I absolutely agree with it. Do I have a clear path to get to there? Not yet, because I think in what you've mentioned previously is that we need to unlearn. A lot of people have been used to the fact that say, you know what, when I'm inside that organizational shell, we're all secure. It's the whole thing that it's in the previous model is the trust and then verify. Zero trust is never trust, but always verify. I don't trust you, Gary. Let me show you your identity, then we can talk again, right? So that has to change. So there's quite a bit of awareness that we have to do inside the organization. We also have starting to implement technologies such as doing two-factor authentication, even inside the organization where you can access an application. In the past, you said, hey, I'm single sign-on. I think one of the previous panel people saying, you know what, security or IT people, they're always like the party poopers. I think security people are even the worst party poopers, because each time we say, don't do this. Why? Oh, because you can have something impacted here. Now you're gonna say, guess what? We implemented single sign-on so that it's easy. Oh, by the way, now you have to re-authenticate for each of the application you're gonna access, because we're operating on a zero trust environment. So to what extent are we going to get to? I think those are things that we're still working on. It is a journey. Like it's not something like, great, we have a technology, we're going to implement it tomorrow. The whole organization is going to be zero trust. If anybody thinks of that, I would love to talk to them if they have that solution. But I can tell you, I haven't found any of that stuff, because to me, zero trust is a journey. It's how you actually get there. And Gary, you mentioned it right. We have to unlearn and we have to relearn. We have to educate our staff as to why are we going to that direction. And the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is, how the heck did we get into that zero trust thing, right? And to me, the simple answer is because of all the endpoints that we end up having. Like, somebody has a gadget, has this, people talk about IoT, talk about my smartphone, you talk about my iPad, you talk about this, you talk about that, And then we have the remote workforce. Now everybody's no longer in the office. They're all over, scattered all over the world. So I think that kind of situation really drove the whole aspect to say, now let's revisit that. And this, to me, this really zero trust. So do I agree with it? Yes, I do agree with it. And we're taking steps to go into that direction, but we're not there yet.
So I got to ask one follow-up quick question, because you talked all about zero trust. You talked all about single sign-on, right? Which, right, just means you got to sign on multiple times. You didn't talk about, but the employee experience as you roll out zero trust. Just give me a brief. How is your employees handling rolling out?
We have for the employee piece, we have not fully rolled it out because when we're rolling it out, it hasn't impacted them. So we have to do the awareness campaign as part of that. So that is also part of our program to actually make sure that the employees understand why. This is part of the unlearning and learning again, to get them to understand why are we going towards a zero trust model versus, oh my God, in the past, I signed on here, now I need to sign on 10 different things, right? So that is, awareness is the biggest thing that we have to do. If we forget the employees, we're screwed.
Okay, so Jesse, let's pivot.
Yeah.
We're all talking about transformation in one way or another, right? But today, when we hear about transformation, we think about employees. We think about frontline workers. We think about we're thinking all about the employees. But what about the security organization, right? How are we going to transform the security organization into today's, I don't know, what do we call it? Digital world, digital change, digital something going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, Gary. So, I think, we've had, some unique experiences here at Amtrak. Most people, when they think of Amtrak, what do you think of? I mean, it's a train, right? I mean, we deliver, people from one city to another, one location to another via the train. But, there's actually so much more going on behind the scenes of that. And there still is very much a legacy piece to the business. And we're getting ready to celebrate our 51st birthday. So some of those legacy infrastructure and ways of thinking certainly existed when I arrived at Amtrak 3 years ago. I mean, we are, from a security perspective, I was trying to wrap my head around, the fact that we are an owner, operator, and builder in 3 different critical infrastructure sectors. And that's of course the transportation sector, but we're also in the energy sector and the emergency services sector because we generate power and we have a federalized police force. So where I really saw the immediate need for change and transformation, let's say within our technology stack and further within my security organization, is when the pandemic kicked off. And think about everything I said initially about Amtrak really being a legacy, brick and mortar type company. Everything was designed in the company to where its employees came into a location to work, whether it's coming into an office building, whether it's going into a maintenance yard, whether it's going into a station, on board a train, what have you. And all of the employee work experience was designed around going into a location to perform that work. So when the pandemic kicked off and the majority of our workforce, or at least our administrative staff and our management staff, had to go work from home, we still had employees, out there working on the front lines, but we had to figure out, how we're going to work as a company. And the first thing that I recognized is that our technology stack, our security stack, just didn't work the way it did before. I mean, we still had, a sort of castle and moat mentality. Everything's behind the firewall, and we trust everything behind the firewall. As Ken was saying, and then when we took our laptops and we went home to work, we couldn't get antivirus updates, we couldn't get our patches. Some of the applications that we had on-prem didn't work, and our VPN solution couldn't support the whole company being on VPN at one time. So we had to reinvent the way we work as a company to being a more digital company and less a brick and mortar company. For my organization, we had to reinvent our whole security tech stack so that it could work from any device, from anywhere, and any user. And that's where we initially started our zero trust journey, and creating those capabilities for our employees to do that type of work from anywhere, particularly at that time from their home, But now we are transitioning that into our frontline workforce of having that ability to be connected wherever they're at. An example would be our engineers used to carry, I don't know, 20 pounds of books and operating orders and rules and stuff that they were mandated to carry. Now we're replacing all of that with a tablet. So instead of carrying around 20 pounds of papers in a duffel bag, they're carrying around a tablet, and that enables them to be connected. And so from my organization perspective, it's, how do we enable and empower the company? That's the direction we've changed from, a strategic perspective. When I arrived, the security strategy was no cyber breaches, right? I mean, that was basically the blanket strategy. Now we've shifted that to where we're looking at things like NIST cybersecurity framework, risk management framework, zero trust, and with the clear focus on how do we enable and empower the company? How do we enable and empower the workforce versus, let's keep everybody behind this firewall and protect everything and, that comes inside, but then we trust everything. So there's been a significant change in people, process, technology, as well as the culture of the company to become what we need to become.
It sounds more like a KPI than a strategy there. Don't want to, right, at that point.
Yeah.
So Mignana, let's switch. Let's start talking about the humans, okay? Because we're here because the humans are using technology and we have to protect the company and them as well. So in your opinion, what do you think the future employee is going to look like?
Well, again, I'm so grateful that I got to, spend some time at AWS because I think they've got the formula for the future employee now. And because of that, and actually with the experience I'm going on with NetApp, I think we're all trendsetters on that. The future employees are happening in some of the high-tech companies right now. And so thinking it's more like, you mentioned a lot of it actually when you were speaking to Hunter. I'm going to just bring up some other fundamentals. And so the organizations are getting flat. Hierarchy, it does not work anymore. And it's about empowerment across the board, working on teams where you have a early career person sitting side by side with a former exec and their peers, they're working together. They just bring different levels of experience. Totally on board with you about working anywhere, any place. And I love Zoom. And, Zoom is just the simple things. You can do anything, anywhere, and be flexible as you want, speak anytime. And work becomes something that you do when you are able to do it. And I just, I give the example of when working on an incident in Log4j, I had babies on the calls, dogs on the call, just it's because you're embracing the person, the whole person and what they bring in their whole family and the flexibility. And it, culturally it's going to be where it's okay to fail fast. It's okay to bring ideas. So we remove a lot of the stereotypical work settings. And so bring ideas to the table, invent, be creative. And I think the most important thing in the future is the relevance we bring to each person as they come to the table, as opposed to looking at the organizational confines that we had created in the past.
Great. Okay, so now we know, Kim, we now know what Mignana thinks the future employee is going to look like. So let's look deep in your company. Now you're going to have this, I don't know, let's just call it hybrid model, right? Probably more flexible, but hybrid flexible model. And you're going to have people who are not in the same locations like we are now, but now you're going to have groups in the same locations and groups that are remote, all trying to be productive the same way. How are you coping with that in your company? And maybe coping is not the right word.
I mean, I don't think you have a choice of not coping, because if you decide to sort of say, everybody has to get back to the office and that's the way it's going to work, guess what? One day today is going to work. The next day you're going to look at the room is empty, right? Like you've mentioned, a lot of people have got used to the fact as to how they can work remote. So we are actually looking at even right now, we have people going to the office, but they have to follow the criteria that, we need to have some checks and balances to make sure that we don't have too many people. But as we start opening more and more and have people going back to the office, you will still have the piece that says, you know what, some guys are going to be working remote, some guys are going to be working in the office. And you know what, we're so used to now working fully remote. One of the jokes that we have is when you're working remote, you have no idea how high how tall peoples are, right? Because everybody looks the same height. Now when they actually get back to the office, they're going to be surprised to say, oh my God, this is you. But how do you keep those two in mode working in terms of having people in the office where they don't make they don't disturb your neighbors because I'm in a meeting, right? So looking at technologies, I know Zoom has a fair bit of technology that we've also looked at to also to help the employees be in the office, kind of in a hybrid work. But we're looking at this type of technology to help us make sure that people can continue to work, collaborate. And the piece that you mentioned about the asynchronous work, I think this is reality. The fact that, you know what, people used to say, if you're not there, I can't work. Well, you have to adapt. Like, things are changing to make sure that, you know, at the end of the day, it's the goal that matters. How do we get there, right? Sometimes you will have some synchronous work. Sometimes you will have asynchronous work. So the whole thing is you have to be quite flexible from a people standpoint. How is the security tied to that? I think we already talked about that before in terms of the zero trust, like making sure that we have the right tools to actually help protect the organization. Whether we're you know, there's more stuff about CASB that people are talking about to make sure that, you know what, people from home, they can actually get be having secure access. And even internally, as you have now more of different types of events that's happening, how do you actually detect abnormal events? How do you detect abnormal user behavior? You know what? Jesse normally works from 6 a.m. till 3 p.m. Suddenly you start seeing Jesse working from 3 a.m. till at 3 a.m. in the morning. And then why is Jesse doing that, right? So these are things that we have to make sure that, again, getting the employee, the people aware, what are the new rules are, what are the things that we're flexible about, what are the goals, and also making sure that we have the right technology that supports it, right?
Good answer. The one thing that you didn't hit on is serendipitous moments, right? Those flybys in the kitchen. I don't know of a real good solution for that either.
The what, sorry?
Serendipitous moments that, you know, bumping into you in the elevator. Hey, you remember this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, the water cooler moments as well, right?
Water cooler moments. So Jesse, you know what I read?
What's
I
that?
read Amtrak got $40 billion from this government act to build new passenger rails in the United States.
That's
So
correct,
do
Gary.
me a favor. That's a good idea, isn't it? Okay. Why don't you just give us just a brief 30-second on what that is? Because I'm sure we're all interested. But I'm really interested in knowing, okay, now that you're going to build this new rail infrastructure in the future, how is your cybersecurity team going to be involved with that?
Sure. So in case you haven't been tracking the news or tracking what our president, also known as Amtrak Joe, has been saying, Amtrak was a significant beneficiary in what's called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Now there's well over $1 trillion in that, but within that, Amtrak was awarded and entrusted with $40 billion to make improvements in passenger rail service throughout the United States. And the improvements that we're going to be making, it's buying new train sets, building new stations, creating new inner city corridors to get people between mega city centers to mega city centers. And it's all based off of Amtrak's 15-year plan, which you can see on AmtrakConnectUs.com and check out what all we're doing. And there's still room and flexibility for change there, because it's the American people that drive what we deliver to them. And to follow up on your question, Gary, about, where does my team come in on that? So, we've got a lot of infrastructure to build, and certainly we've got to buy/build new train sets and new capabilities to provide this capability and service to the American people. And as a company, we've reorganized kind of into I'd say, two main business lines. One's about running the business and one's about building for the future. The running the business is our service delivery and operations organizations. So that's all the frontline workers that you see every day, people running the business, driving the trains, supporting you with customer service calls or whatever the case may be. But then we have a new organization, it's called Capital Delivery, and they're focused on delivering on the infrastructure bill requirements. And within that group, there's a group organization focused on, well, what are we going to build and why are we going to build it? There's a focus on, okay, so we know what we're going to build, how are we going to build it? And then there's a third groups that are focused on actual delivery and execution of what we're building and delivering. So my team is involved in all three of those stages. So first, we're at the table discussing with the project engineers and the architects on, what we're going to build and where we're going to build it and why. And then we provide architecture and engineering support from the cybersecurity organization to actually design and what's going to be built. And then from a vulnerability assessment, reassessment, validation perspective, we are part of the execution and delivery of new infrastructure.
Great. So we'll have to talk about Zoom phone booths on those new Amtraks, okay?
That sounds cool.
Great.
Would love to see that.
We got like 3 minutes left. So I have one final question. I usually like to ask this question is, so everybody please just take a minute because we're going to turn it back to Hunter on time. What is the number one thing that keeps you up at night and why? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my number one thing is I keep puzzling through on talent retention. And the reason I say that is because of the pandemic. And you look at some of the staff, they've moved away from the offices, they've moved away from other places. And so how do we embrace that and enable them to be successful where they moved and remove that you have to go back to the office idea?
Great. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. From the security side, one thing that keeps me up at night is zero-day attacks. What else is going to come down the pipe?
Okay, that's great. Jesse?
So I used to say the sheer volume of work kept me up at night. If you Google CISO sleep positions, there's a meme out there that shows the CISO's beds neatly made while the other chief executives are sleeping comfortably in their beds. But today I'd say it's.
I think he froze. Let's give him a second to come back. While we're waiting for him, anybody else got a second?
How about you?
You know what keeps me up at night? Look, I understand that we're going into a new world of security and we're bringing in new employees. I think what keeps me up at night is how are we going to understand what the next security needs are for the future of work employees? And how are we going to be, and I think Minona said it, how are we going to quickly evolve that as the employee changes? Because I'm afraid that the future employee is going to change its operating process faster than we can put in security processes and procedures. We want to keep the company and the employees secure. It's just, I don't know if we can keep up with the rate of change. Jesse, you froze. So if you can go back to like the last 2 minutes.
Great. It was me that froze. Sorry about that. But it's our people and managing employee burnout and the workload that they're taking on and addressing the cyber talent shortage and coming up with strategies to make sure that we're able to continue to support the business without burning out our workforce.
Great. Well, listen, thank you so much for this great discussion on safeguarding the future of work. And now, Hunter, back over to you on time.
Excellent. Hey, Gary. Thanks so much. Great job, Gary, Minona, Dennis, and Kinley. Thank you. What a great summit. Over 200 people registered. 150 or so showed up. A big shout out to our partners, Zoom, Globant, Mimecast, to our strategic partners, CIO Canada and Toronto Sim. Thank you very much. Been great 10 plus years relationship. Looking forward to seeing you all in person in June. Personal invite to attend, to potentially be on the advisory board, possibly speak, a dinner the night before. We're covering what matters most here at HMG Strategy to accelerate your career, accelerate your brand into the C-suite, the line of business, into the boardroom on our global digital platform, our global digital branding platform. It's never been more important to have a global brand, and we get you up there and out there with our 1 million impressions a week worldwide. So a big shout out to the HMG strategy team, Melissa Marr, Kimberly, Pamela, Zach, August, Connor, Ryan, and the whole sales team, Rob and Travis. Thank you so much. And looking forward to seeing you soon, again in person in April in New York, Dallas, Silicon Valley, some 80 plus in-person events in 2022. Check out our marketing material online, reach out, get engaged, and stay connected. Stay with HMG Strategy and stay with Hunter.
For more information, please visit hmgstrategy.com and keep up to date by following us on our social media platforms. Thank you. This has been a presentation of HMG Live.